Okay, we are live. Peace, peace. Welcome to the God Standard Podcast. This is episode number 1 with your girl, your host, Ebony X, your sister, Ebony X. So, this podcast, like I said, it's episode 1, and we aim to, shed light and insight and and life. Above all, we aim to bring life to the original people of the planet through conversations and stories of those who are building themselves up to be gods, to be children of the Most High God through the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, under the guidance and leadership of the Most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And here we are today. So, like with everything else that we strive to do, Bismillah. So the way that this is going to go, so normally I would like to, so in the future, starting from next week, I'm going to have guests from different walks of life, from different experiences, sisters, brothers, etc., to share their experience, to share their stories, to share their come up and how they, came into the knowledge of themselves and how they are striving to be young gods. Okay. So just to be clear, when I say young gods, of course, we are not the God, the creator. We are not Allah. We are young gods. We are the little g. So when you see the logo, there's the big G and the little g, okay? So we are striving to be children of the Most High. The Bible says, ye are all gods, children of the Most High God. So that's what we are doing, striving to, you know, be up to that standard, striving to be to that level of order and dignity and respect and creation and all of those things. Okay. So bear with me. Like I said, this is my first episode, episode 1. So you're going to have to come along and see the growth and the expansion as it happens. If you're here, you're growing with me. Okay. We're growing through it together, if you will. So how this is going to go, the first episode is just going to be me, no guests, and I'm going to share. First of all, I'm going to share how this came about, how it all started, like where my vision first came from, right, to put this together, and then I'm going to share a little bit about my story, and how I came to self acceptance. That's the title of episode 1, my journey, the journey to self acceptance, right? And then you'll understand, what is self acceptance and what does that mean, right? So how this came along is, as I mentioned, I'm MGT in the Nation of Islam, and I when I was first coming into this, right, I had a sister, and her and I were coming into this together, and um I actually met her. So we were going to Savior's Day, and Savior's Day is an annual um celebration, if you will, in the Nation of Islam, where we come together and we celebrate our leader, Father Muhammad. And when I was coming in, it was right around the time of Savior's Day. So I wanted to go. I was really excited, but everybody had already made their arrangements to go, except this sister and I, because we were new. We didn't know anything about anything, right? So I literally got connected with her, and the first day that we were in touch to make our arrangements, but the first day that we were on our way is the first day that we met. And from the day one, we clicked, we connected, we just understood each other, so that was that. And we had this whole new experience together. She was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sister, and she was a little bit younger than me, but I was so inspired by her because she was a wealth of knowledge. She studied so much. She understood so much. Was just she was just beautiful all around. And you know, um this year when I was leading up to Savior's Day, I haven't been to Savior's Day in like many years before this year, 2024. And I kept thinking about her and thinking about her. And I don't know why, like day after day, I was thinking about her. And um, I wanted to do something in her memory. Okay. So I have to say she passed away, right? She's no longer with us. And may Allah be pleased with her. And I really wanted to do something in her memory. So she had this thing where she every day she was really heavy on social media, and she would really strive to teach the people what we're learning. And her and I went out soldiering together to just teach people about, teach our people about themselves, teach our people about the things that are, impediments to our growth, and things that we just are you know things that are cultural things of us that are quote unquote normal, but are not necessarily good for us, or not necessarily, the best things for our overall growth and development. So every day she would post at 7:11 p.m. on the dot. She would post, it's 7:11, make a prayer. 7:11, make a prayer. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start a podcast. I'm gonna start a podcast, and it's gonna be in her memory, and I'm gonna call it something about 7-Eleven. And I don't even know this, like, to this day, this is something that I don't know if it's Allah's will, He will give me the understanding to, like, the insight of what it really means, because to this day I don't know. So I wanted to name it something about 7-Eleven for my sister. And yeah, I never came up with that name, but so that is the reason. She is the reason. Sister Tanisha X, may Allah forever be pleased with her. She is one of the reasons, one of the main reasons for this podcast. And then when I went to Savior's Day, it was kind of like the whole experience for me was significant in just leading me more and more down this road. You know, we have this class on Saturdays, MGT class. So it's a whole sea of beautiful Black women, brown women, indigenous women coming together, just looking beautiful, being beautiful, exuding just love and connection and vibrance. And I'm looking around and I'm like, man, I am so blessed to be a part of this. Like, I am so blessed to be with this level of people. And our sister captain Naima Mohammed said at the end, she said, you guys, like when we think of Black women, like, you guys are the standard. Like, you are the standard. And for some reason, obviously Allah knows we're here today, right? That just stuck in my head, like tattooed on my brain. Okay. And I was just like, yeah, like, we are the standard. Like, this is the standard. Like, and I just went with it. And this whole process, I haven't really pressured it too much for it to be like what I want, but really just taking the guidance and the flow of what came, what the God wanted, you know what I mean? So um needless to say, as I was thinking of names, it came up with the standard, and I didn't really know. And then I'm like, gold. Like, when we think of a monetary finance, right? Gold, before currency, it was like the gold standard, right? And the gold standard was the highest standard, and that's, like, pure gold, 99.999, right? Whatever it is. And that just kept on coming to mind. So that's why we're here. That's what it is. And just seeing the minister, and hearing him speak about, just hearing him speak in general, like, this is a beautiful man, and he's worked his whole life and sacrificed, like, hearing his family speak, and the sacrifice that he's made to, teach us. And you know um oftentimes Islam gets a bad rap, especially the way that we are, because we learn knowledge of self. We learn that you don't have to be an Arab to be a Muslim. And a lot of times in the Muslim community, it's like, there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of, high I don't know what you would call it, like hierarchy, like the Arabs on top and everybody else kind of, just there. and we don't play that. Like we are ourselves, you know what I mean? We are the original people of the planet, and there's nothing that beats that. So that's that. And to just see all the work that he does and the sacrifice that he's done and the sacrifice even that his family has made, I'm like, listen, I need to help this man in the little way that I can, because in Canada it's very it's a little bit different here just because of we don't have the numbers like that. But so yeah, this is a gift, and I meant to start this podcast on May 11th, which is his birthday, and I wanted it to be a gift to my beloved minister, but it didn't work out that way. But you know, Allah is the best planner. Here we are today. We're gonna move on. So that's what it is, and it's I really just want people to see. You know, we as Black people who are looking for knowledge and looking for wisdom and understanding, we see on social media, you know, we hear about Malcolm X, we know Muhammad Ali, we see the Riza Islams and the 19 Keys and Brother Ben X and Nuri Muhammad, and we see these people who have used the teachings and, you know, catapulted themselves, and they're at the forefront. But there are so many, not negating anything that they do, there are so many others who are gods in their respective lane, who are giants in their respective lane, who, you know, have used these teachings to be healthy and be strong and build businesses and, you know, overcome difficulties and so many things. So I really just want this to be for those who, you know, are curious maybe, or just wanting to learn, to really see what it looks like for people to know that they're gods and strive to operate like that, you know what I mean? And all in righteousness, all in striving to be the highest standard of civilization, striving to be clean in all respects, inside and out. You know what I mean? So I think from when I witness it, I feel like it's such a beautiful thing, and I want to share it with whoever else, whoever else's ears are, you know, keen to it. So that's that. So I'm going to share a little bit about, you know, my story and how, you know, it came this how I've led up to this point in my life. Because when I think of myself now and I see myself now, it's literally like a world of a difference to like how I grew up, what I learned growing up, what I seen growing up, and how I came to this point. So I'm gonna share a little bit about my backstory. So basically, and feel free. So I'm on Instagram over here, and I'm on Facebook and YouTube and the other Instagram account over here. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to chime in. Like, I want this to be a conversation, and like I said, usually it would be with somebody else, but since I'm by myself, you guys are watching. Feel free to, you know, dialogue. Okay. So growing up, I grew up like most Black people in the hood, single mother household. I didn't really I didn't really know anything other than what I seen around me. And I remember being very young and not necessarily understanding what I didn't like about my surroundings, but I knew I didn't like it, and I knew I didn't want to be like what was around me. But I didn't know anything other than that. Nobody else around me was giving me any type of like, you know, knowledge that was above that, or understanding or insight or anything like that, right? So I was kind of grappling with that a little bit, right? Um so I was doing the same types of things that is quote unquote normal. I started smoking weed when I was like 11 or 12 years old. By the time I was 14, I had already been arrested like probably 2, 3 times. Um, I was just doing, you know, the typical things. Even in high school, like at the beginning of high school, I didn't do much work. I just skipped. I was just with hanging around with people who were as lost as me. So that was my life, and I never really had anybody to pull me up and say like, yo, get this thing together, get it together, like do your work, you know what I mean? And I loved school. I always loved to learn, but the way that it was is that like I used to get in trouble sometimes in elementary school for asking questions that like the teacher could not or didn't want to explain to the rest of the class. That was the type of thing. So by the time I was in high school, I was just uninterested. No teachers could really like spark my interest, you know? So I just I didn't do well. I didn't do well in school, and not because I was stupid or not because I just wasn't applying myself because I didn't want to, you know? At 16, 17, you know, I got pregnant, and you know, God is the best planner. That obviously didn't work out, but I'm grateful for all of those experiences because it, you know, led me to here. It's a part of the journey, you know what I mean? And so by those, if you look at that record, like if you look at all the information, I was just one of those kids that were just gonna end up, you know, in the hood, just messing up, just doing the typical things that everyone else does. You know what I mean? And I remember there was this one teacher in high school, Mr. Watkins, and he was the first one to spark my interest in myself as a black person, as a black woman. And before that, I never even really understood like I grew up with my mom is half white. My sisters are white pretty much and white passing anyways, I should say. Um so like race wasn't for us we grew up like that wasn't like a thing. Like I didn't really you know what I mean? And I was the darkest person in my family for the in my, you know, immediate family. So I don't know, it wasn't really like a thing. But when I got in this man's class, he changed my whole perspective of life. Like I wish that I could speak to him now and understand where he or why he did what he did. Because in his class, so if you're in Toronto, you know, so I went to this school. It was between Weston Road and Jane Street. Okay. So it was between hoods. It was just a whole bunch of hood kids in the school, and literally some of the teachers were scared of the students. Like it was just it was a mess. But in this man's class, I don't remember in his whole entire class, I don't remember writing on a paper, I don't remember writing a test, I don't remember doing any of those typical school things. But his class was the my favorite class. I'm pretty sure I got an A+ in that class. But it was like a study group. He got all of these young kids together who everyone else looked at as lost causes. You wear your pants down, but on down, you're sagging, you're coming in smelling like weed, like all this kind of stuff. But he didn't judge us. He told us who we were. Like he told us about the IMF. He told us about you know, just the state of the world and how the systems work. And he was just like straight up with us. Like, listen, you guys behaving the way that you guys are behaving is what they want you to do, is what the system is designed for you to do. It's designed for you to fail. And you have the power and the capacity to change this. Like you could change yourself. You guys can be leaders. Like he put us in position to be leaders and really like flex our abilities. He allowed us to express ourselves in class. Like we could swear and not at each other, but express. Like he just allowed us to just speak and express. But he saw he saw the God in us. Like he saw the God in us. He wasn't afraid of us. He was very, you know, he would joke with us, but we also knew like not to mess with him. Like he had that kind of spirit. Um, he was also my coach when I did wrestling and rugby. But yeah, so that was the first like interaction that I had with like, wow, like I'm a black woman in North America. Like this is not designed for me. Like this is not how it's supposed to be. And that made me like his going through his class and doing his leadership programs like sparked my brain to be like, wow, like you have the power to change your life, like regardless of your circumstances, regardless of what's around you, regardless of what you've been taught up until now, like you have everything that you need to change yourself and to change your life. Do you know what I mean? So that was a huge blessing. So at that point I started and that was supposed to be my last year of high school, my fourth year, but I was failing, so I was so behind. There was no way I was graduating. And all of my quote unquote friends who were in my age group were graduating, most of them anyways, were graduating out of were graduating out of school, right? So I was left there. I was going to be left there anyways, like with all the younger people, because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And like I said, there was nobody at home that was saying, "Listen, get it together, do what you're supposed to do." So I did it myself, and I just started serious about school. I started applying myself. I got A's and B's. Like I got such good marks in just applying myself. And I ended up graduating. Um that was my first I guess at the end when I graduated, I didn't even go to my graduation because I wanted to be done with school because I was just over it. I didn't Like I said, it didn't spark my interest enough. But I always since like in that last year, I started learning my on my own, learning about like Black history, learning about different things, right? So after that, I went into college because I just thought that was the right thing to do. I was the first one of my mom's children who like graduated high school, like actually in high school, right? And I just thought the next what I thought I'm gonna do the opposite of what everyone else does. I'm gonna go to college. So I didn't know what to do. I went to college for radio broadcasting. I wanted to be like I was always good at communicating, and I have like a personality that's, for the most part outgoing. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a radio host personality. And I dropped out after the first semester because it just wasn't for me, But it's funny because I'm doing a podcast right now, and this is like a kind of like a full circle moment, right? But anyway, so I dropped out of that. I just was working. I worked like two jobs at the time. And then I started another program for what I really wanted to. And in that time, I feel like my heart opened up. Like if that even makes sense. Like my heart really opened up. Like I opened up to like myself. Like I opened up to just I say the God in me. Like I opened up to like love, because before I was just an angry kid. Like I was just angry and like forget the world kind of thing. And I didn't share this, but God has always been something, and God has always been something that I've pursued. It's always been something that I've tried to understand. Like even as when I was even like 8 years old, my mom could tell you like I used to dress myself to go to church. Like my mom never like religious. She never brought us to church, anything like that. My dad was a Rasta and he wasn't around, so that I wasn't exposed to that. But I myself went to church. I would wake up and get dressed and go to church every Sunday. And then, I being inquisitive as I am, being a person that wants to learn, I would ask questions. And it's like these people weren't able to answer my questions. And I stopped going to that church. I went to a Pentecostal church and I got baptized because I really wanted that connection with God. And I strive to, make it with myself and make it at home and all that kind of stuff. But I always wanted more. Like I'm like, what is this? How does this make sense? You know what I mean? Anyways, got baptized, Pentecostal, born again Christian. That was like when I was probably like maybe, I don't know, 13, 12, maybe 11. I don't know, somewhere around those times. Um, and again, I would ask these questions and it would get to a point where at first they thought it was great. They're like, wow, you're so into this, you're asking questions. But then when I asked certain questions, like nobody could answer me. And that was just when it was just discouraging. So at this point, after like high school, I called myself agnostic. I loved God, I prayed, all of those kinds of things. I was always, yes, ma'am. I was always God conscious, but I called myself agnostic. I'm like, man, bun religion, not into religion. Because even in high school, I took like a world religions course where I learned about different religions. And, I was just like, I'm not into any of this. I'm just going to believe in God and stay focused on where I'm supposed to go, right? Um, yes, yes. I became enlightened, absolutely. At that point, I was like open. I was just like, okay, I'm energy and spirit. um, so I start college now. I get into social service work. So I start college, and I knew that in that time, I knew that I wanted to help people. I didn't know how I wanted to help people. I didn't know who I wanted to help, but I knew I wanted to help people. Like I wanted to help people from the hood. I wanted to help people from where I came from. Like I wanted to give myself and my experiences to the world, okay? I think even at that time maybe I wasn't even thinking about my experiences and all that, but just I just wanted to help. So anyways, did that. So in between it was a 2-year program. In between my first and second year, I took a trip, and this was the second part. So first part, Mr. Watkins. Second part, this trip, okay? And this trip changed my life, okay? So I took a trip to Africa. Mind you, I'm like 18 years old, okay? 18, yeah, 18 years old. Maybe 18, 19 years old. And I took a trip to Africa. I was in Tanzania, and this trip was a volunteering trip, okay? So it was through like a youth organization, and I went and I stayed in Tanzania for 2 months, okay? So during that 2 months, I stayed with a family in Tanzania, and I was there working with local organizations where you know, I volunteered to, like, I taught English, I taught computers, and then there was a health aspect of it where we were doing like AIDS awareness with the women in the community. And if you don't know Zanzibar, well, that's where I stayed in Tanzania, Zanzibar. Tanzania is a Muslim country, okay? And growing up in the neighborhood that I did, I always saw Muslims, but they were like, I grew up in a very Muslim community, okay? Somalis, Pakistanis, Indians, like all of those people. But I never saw like black people like that looked like me. You know what I mean? When I went to Tanzania, it was like I was in awe. Like I was blown away at like the beauty, the culture, the people. Like I seen people there that I'm like, hey, didn't don't I know this person from back home? Like they look like the people that I seen all the time. And I never felt so safe there. Like at night, women can walk around. Like there's just a level of understanding, like the women are protected. Like you don't do certain things. Even certain things that I saw there where in the community, like there was one instance where somebody like tried to steal something and he got beat up. I mean, I know that's not a great thing, but just the fact of community where like everybody looks out for each other. Like we're not calling the police. We're looking out for each other. Like we're taking care of our community. We're taking care of our people. Like that's just the culture. And it was funny too because one of the guys there that I worked with, he was working with the other like the organization that was stationed in Zanzibar. Him and I would always have these discussions about religion and God. Like that's like probably one of my favorite topics to speak about. But we would have all this like deep conversations, and it would get like passionate. And he was like, you know what? The next time you come to Zanzibar, you're gonna be a Muslim. And I'm like, wow, you're crazy. Cheesy coming deezy. That's what they say. That's what they say there. But I would say, yeah, you're insane. Like there ain't no way. And I mean, as it goes, I think the next time that I go to Zanzibar, you know what I mean. Um, but yeah, that experience changed my life, like wholeheartedly on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, just seeing myself in relation to the world, seeing myself in relation to black people, seeing myself in relation to like just the whole like thing. Like it was, yeah, there's not even words that I could say for that, but yeah, unity, definitely, definitely. Let me just agnostic. I did feel like that at the time I was an Israelite. Yes, ma'am. That's like, no, I feel that. I feel that because, you know, we go through these processes where we are looking for understanding and looking for something that makes sense, okay? So, okay, so now I come back from Tanzania now, new lease on life. It was actually a real shocker coming back after 2 months. I feel like I had this like reverse like culture shock because I came back to Toronto and it's like people don't say hi to you, no one's checking for anybody. It's just the concrete jungle, and it was a very like vast transition for me, okay? But I made it through, right? By the grace of Allah. But when I came back, having all this, I guess, under like having all this information made me see everything different. Everything different. Even the fact when I came back, I was like, after school, I'm gonna go and get my master's in social work. I'm gonna do this and do that. And I'm just like that, even that changed, right? So I met a guy. um, I met a brother who was in the nation. He was, yes, he was in the nation. Period. Okay. And I was just sharing my experience with him about going to Africa and seeing the people. And as I just expressed it to you guys, imagine that same like energy, but like being fresh. Like I was excited. I was like, yeah, it was like this, it was like that. This is what I saw. This is what I experienced. And he started teaching me. He's like, you know that you're a Muslim, right? And I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, he's like, yeah, like by like that's your nature, like that's who you are. And I was just like, okay, who's this guy? You're crazy, right? Um, and it was just it was just like the timing was just impeccable because I started learning. I'm like, okay, let me watch a DVD. Let me see what this is. And I had never heard of Minister Farrakhan. I had never heard of the Nation of Islam. I feel like in hindsight, I remember something in high school where somebody showed me something where I saw like the flag of Nation of Islam, but like I never really knew. I did not know what this was, right? But I was very familiar with the Islamic cult, like the Islamic religion, right? Islam. So anyway, so I start learning, I start reading this, and when I was watching, I'm like, wow, like I never heard a black man speak like this. Talking about Minister Farrakhan, I'm like, I never heard a black man speak like this. And what he was saying, because in my experience the few years before, like I'm learning all this information, but I didn't understand. Like I didn't really like it made sense to like just take in. I'm like, okay, I get that. But I didn't really have understanding in a total kind of way. And what I was learning and what he was teaching, I'm like, yo, this makes it all make sense. Like everything that I knew already, like in my heart of hearts, like I'm like, okay, he made it plain. I'm like, this is plain. This makes sense. Like this is how I understand. This it's coming together. You know what I mean? So at this point I didn't join. I wasn't at the study group, anything like that. I was just watching DVDs. I was reading books, those kinds of things. And I remember watching a lecture. I don't know what lecture it was, but so I'm taking in these lectures. I'm listening to what this man has to say, and it's already resonating with me. And then I see the vanguard. Oh my goodness. Then I see the vanguards like coming through, and I'm just like, what is it? It literally makes me like emotional because when I tell you to see these soldiers, to see these young women, soldiers for Allah, in the ranks, standing on business, looking looking so good, like beautiful, but like I'll also break your neck type thing. Like that for me, I'm like, okay, this makes sense for me because I grew up with a fight in me. Like not even grew up. I would say I was born with a fight in me. I was always a fighter. I had the fight in me. It was there, like it was there. But growing up, I didn't know where to put that fight. So I got in trouble for fighting. I got in trouble for being aggressive because I did not know. I didn't have like a worthy thing to fight for. You understand? So, like I said, when I seen the vanguard, and I'm like, okay, so I can fight for righteousness. Like that's what you mean? Like I can take this fight and I can put it to something where I'm not looked at like I'm doing too much kind of thing. I'm like, okay, yes. Where do I sign up? Where do I sign up? Tell me where I sign my name. You understand? So from then, that's when I kind of like, I'm like, okay, I've studied a lot. I've learned, I've watched these lectures, but now I need to get around believers. Like I need to get around people who know this stuff and can teach me and can, you know what I mean? So yes, ma'am. So inspired. Trust me, so inspired. So Came in, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a vanguard. Let's go. So I go to the study group, and first day I'm just like, I didn't even put my hand up, to be honest. I was just like, listen, I was already in. Like I was already in before you asked the question. Like just tell me where I need to sign. You know what I mean? So I came in, I did my, did the whole thing. And when I started going to MGT class, like that was another thing that I feel was so and is so important to me. You understand? Because like explained my story, I didn't know how to I didn't know how to be a woman, put it that way. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to take care of a house. I didn't know how to take care of children. I didn't know how to take care of a man, my husband. I didn't know how to, you know, create clothes. I didn't know how to do any of these things. You understand? And a part of the reason why us as people, go into the world and can't operate at a certain type of level is because we don't have this wisdom, right? Imagine growing up in an environment where nobody around you, I never saw certain things. I never saw, you know, taking care of these things in an effective manner. I just saw struggle, you understand? So being in the class and learning these things gave me, I could say gave me wings. Okay, I could say gave me the confidence to see that, listen, you are a god. Like you can create all of this. You could create the heaven that you want to live in. Like, okay, you don't like it over there, let me show you how you can create using the god in you, using your gifts and talents, using your passions. And this is how you do it. One plus one is two. And these people are actually teaching me. The teachers are actually teaching me and showing me. And I'm so grateful. Man, talk about it. Look at the Vanguard. The Vanguard gave me confidence as a woman. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So that's pretty much like how I, came into this. And now, like today, when I see myself, right? Um, it's like I navigate life knowing certain things, like certain information and certain knowledge that is like imprinted on my heart and my mind. So certain decisions now are made with that filter. You understand? So for example, I know I'm a god. I know I am a god, child of the most high God. So when I get into difficulty, I go through my difficulty with that in my mind. You understand? When I need to accomplish something and I see it but I don't know how it's going to come together, I go into that with that filter on my mind, right? When I'm dealing with my children and I see them and they're, acting however they're acting or whatever, like things are not working out as planned, I go into it with that. I teach my children that they're gods. You know, I've I've homeschooled my children for 10 years. And anywhere that I go and people see my children, they're like, wow, like these children are so intelligent. They're so this, they're so that. All of them knew how to read at 5 years old fluently. Okay. Um, I learned, just there's so many, like it's endless, but for the most part, I'm learning to build and grow the God in me. And when I get into what I really understand about myself, it's that, back then I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how, right? In when I was really young, okay, I was able to watch the birth of my niece, okay? And that experience made me, I'm like, wow, I really want to be involved with birth. I really want to be involved with supporting women. So that was one thing. Okay. I knew for sure I wanted to support women in birth. Okay. Um, Health has always been something that, I was I guess a challenge for me. Growing up, I had really bad like skin issues and stuff like that. So I, in my later years, as I was learning, as I was getting knowledge and stuff like that, I was getting more healthy, eating more things. I was really on self-development tip. So I was into that, into the health, into the healthy eating, into just really striving to operate at the highest and best that I can as an individual. I wasn't even telling anybody about anything at this point, right? So coming back to when I see myself now, I see that I have these passions, I have these gifts, I have these talents, and I'm still just a baby in this. And when I think of where I came from being here and then where I now have yet to go, it blows my mind because I'm like, this is literally endless possibilities. I could do anything I put my mind to. And I have absolutely no doubt in that. I can literally create the heaven and the life that I want for myself. And I have absolutely no doubt in that. You understand? I can raise strong children, and I have absolutely no doubt in that. You understand? So I think in being in the ranks and being in the teachings has really taught me to be fearless. And even when I do have fear, to to question it, because it's not really, most of the time it's not really real, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm just grateful to be a part of something bigger than a job, something bigger than just going with the status quo, something bigger than just going along to get along, because that's never been my spirit. That's never been who I am as a person, as an individual, as a woman. That's never been who I am, right? So I really just want people to see that, this is good for our people. You understand? Like, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been saying for years and years and years, take your children out of those schools, right? And when I started homeschooling, I swear to you, not many people were homeschooling. And that was just 10 years ago. Okay. Not many people were homeschooling. People thought it was so weird. People thought it was like, how could you do that? They need socialization. And today, there's so many, especially Black people, Black and brown people, who are homeschooling their children because they see that there is no benefit for us in those schools. There's no benefit for our children in those schools, right? Elijah Muhammad told us years and years and years ago to do for self or suffer the consequences. Do for self meaning create your own jobs, create your own businesses, create your own infrastructure in our communities so we can thrive away from the system that was not built for us. And now, in the past, what, 5, 10 years, so many Black businesses have, emerged. Why? Because we have suffered the consequences. We suffered the consequences first, and then go back to what the solution was. But if we just listened to what the solution was from the beginning and we didn't, turn our nose up to it, then how would it be, right? If we already kept our children out of those schools to begin with, how would it be, right? If we didn't go, and now the vaccinations, we've been told for years and years not to take these people's vaccinations. And now with this whole COVID thing, people are coming back and saying, man, I shouldn't have taken it. Man, I wish I didn't have to do that for my job, but I had to do it. But why wait for the consequence to happen? Why wait to suffer the consequence to listen to what you're being told, like what you're being taught? Like, at least consider it. Like, at least consider it. There's the track record speaks for itself, right? The fruit of the tree speak for itself, right? Because we consume the fruit, we consume the knowledge, we eat the fruit, but then we condemn the tree. Then we say, yeah, well, the tree is that's it's dated. It's whatever people say that it is, right? And I think we as a people need to consider it, because the times that we are in right now are serious times. Like, these are some very serious times where things are changing. And if we have divine guidance, why are we not taking it? Why are we not even considering what it could be for us? Why not? Like, nobody else here has the answers. And when you look at the Nation of Islam, you see the operations, you see the people. Like, nobody's perfect, but the answers are there. And that's one thing I know for sure. That's one thing I know for certain, that the answers are there. You understand? Even in this whole social media, like man versus woman, women are mad at the men for what they're not doing. Men are mad at the women for what they're not doing. Men are hurt, women are hurt, and what do? We go to social media and we start going at each other's necks. We start tearing each other down. Why? I think from outside looking in, I think it comes down to two things. One, men and women in the Black community particularly, because we're the only ones arguing like this, right? Don't understand our roles as individuals. We don't understand our role as the woman or understand our role as the man in relationships. That's one. And two, we are so emotionally hurt and aberrated that
we're not even thinking clearly to even come to a solution to the problem. We're just expressing through our pain. We're just expressing through our, you know what I mean? Like, this man is mad that his single mother ignored him for a man, and now he's taking it out on the sister in front of him that could be his woman. Okay. And this sister is mad that her dad wasn't there. So she's mad at this man because he abandoned her or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? And we are taught this in the Nation of Islam. We are taught our roles. We are taught how to be wives and how to be husbands and how to take care of each other. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, we need each other. There's no men over here, women over here. Like, maybe for some things, healing, community, maybe that. But when it comes to relationships, when it comes to building families, when it comes to building unity overall, we need each other. We need to come together. And these problems have been solved right here. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So with this podcast, that's my aim. That's my aim and my purpose here. I just want to, share this knowledge with people, from a lens that is, I want to show you regular people. I want to show you people who have implemented these things into their lives and have been thriving. You understand? And continue to thrive because they've submitted their will to do the will of Allah. And they submitted their will to learn, to do better and be better and understand the condition of our people. Nobody understands the condition of our people like the Nation of Islam. And I could say that without a doubt. And I could say that having learned different things from different places and different people. You understand? And I want to say too that, in my time of traveling and my time of being around different people, like I've been to Africa a few times, I've been to South America, I've been to the Caribbean, throughout the Caribbean, and as an MGT, as a Muslim, Black Muslim woman traveling the world like that and operating as with the knowledge that I have, like, people always, it always stands out to people that don't know. And even when they can't put their finger on it or they don't really understand, it always sticks out. It always stands out above everything else. What they say, like, the cream rises to the top, right? The cream rises to the top. And this is not, I'm not putting this on me to say, okay, it's because of me, but it's because of the knowledge that I know. It's because of, how I've chose to live my life. And it, like I said, it always stands out. People always ask me, people are always curious, well, you don't do this and you don't do this, but you do this. Oh, wow. This is a, wow. Like, it's respected. It's respected. And you know what I mean? I think that's what we need and that's what we deserve as Black women, as Black people. We deserve to be respectable. We deserve to respect each other. We deserve to build things that last. You deserve to build something that is for us, because what more has to happen for us to realize that this these systems, these entities are not for us. They're not built for us. They're not built for our children. Like, you know what I mean? And it's up to us. Like, we are the gods. There is a God, and we are the gods. We are the gods of our life, of our experience, and we have the force and the power to bring about any change that we want, to create something, to have something in our mind and be able to bring it into fruition because we are diligent and disciplined and put the steps in place to go all the way. You understand? So I'm gonna finish up really with that. I wanted to share one last thing, because when so at the beginning I was just speaking about, how this podcast came about, and I personally had to go through a lot of um I had to get past a lot of self-doubt and, like, things in my mind that just really weren't real. Like, limiting thoughts, like that type of thing. And like I said, I aimed to start this podcast May 11th. It's now June 26th. May, June. So it's about weeks later, okay? And I overcame them with the help of God, like, no doubt. And I submitted. I didn't pressure this. I didn't force this. I literally went with the flow of everything. I just gave it to God, and I'm like, this is yours. Put me where you need me to be. Make me say what you need me to say. And that's how I want to do it. And If we, you know, strive to do things that way, I believe that a lot more things would work out for us. We exercise our godhood and we exercise the capacity and the strength that we have within ourselves. Like, ain't no way we need to be struggling. Ain't no way we need to be suffering. Ain't no way we need to look around and see the same thing out in our communities, because we have everything we need to change whatever it is. Okay. Um, so in the time of me, putting it together, I came across this lecture. Wasn't a lecture. I came across this video. So shout out to Brother Ben X, Power Call Community, where every day we study like different things about the teachings and stuff like that. And one day, and I go on that like when my schedule, accounts for it, allows for it. And I went on one day and there was no live video, like there was no live class or study session. And it was like, okay, there's videos, past videos, and I'm going to just watch a past video, right? And I clicked on this one video. This video was Minister Farrakhan's 90th birthday. So this was his birthday, not the May 11th that I was supposed to start the podcast, but the one before, okay? And I already explained the whole gold standard thing that I already thought before seeing this, right? And he was just talking about, he was given a gift of gold from the believers, and he was just talking about his 90 years and what he's done for the community and what he's done for the nation, etc. And he was talking about the fact that we need to pattern after those before us who have done it well. He was talking about himself, right? We should strive to pattern after him because he's done it. He's done it, right? So why are we going to reinvent the wheel? Let's just pattern after him. So it was so in alignment with what I already had in mind for this podcast in showing what I wanted to show. And the fact that it was gold and the fact that it was the gold standard, the God standard, like for me, it was just a God moment of just God saying, like, you're on the right track. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. This is where you're supposed to be. Okay. So I wanted to just read before I close off just a quote that he said during that recording of him accepting his birthday gift. And it is very much in alignment with what I aim to do here and my intentions. So it says, and this is my account of it verbatim. If I make any mistake, charge it to my brain and not my heart, okay? But he said, quote, "You are all worth so much more than you think. And when you dress up, you look so beautiful. And be that way. Be beautiful. Be kind and loving to one another. It ain't that hard. Just look for God," he said. And that's what I look for. And I have not missed him in not one black brother that I have loved. I found God in that person. End quote. So that for me just sealed the deal, because when we look at each other, we're taught when you look at the black man, you're looking at God. And same for the black woman. And just imagine how different things would be between us, between in our communities, if when we looked at our sister, we saw the God in her. When we looked at our brother, we saw the God in him. When we looked at our children, we saw the God in them. Like, how differently would we operate? If when we looked in the mirror and we had these challenges and we had these limiting beliefs and we had these impediments of our mind, how differently would it be if we looked in there and we saw the God in us? That's a question that I'm just going to leave. That's a question that I'm just going to leave and implore whoever's listening, if you're listening to this, to strive to see the God in yourself. Strive to see the God in those around you, your brothers, your sisters, your children, your parents, your community. Strive to see the God, because when we do, we wouldn't act the way that we would the way like otherwise. We wouldn't treat them the way that we would. We wouldn't treat ourselves the way that we would. We wouldn't allow something like a limiting belief to um, be so detrimental to us that we don't do something that we really desire. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna leave it at that. if there's no other questions, I thank you all for listening. If you're listening the replay, I thank you for listening. And yeah, next week, new episode, inshallah, Tuesday. And yeah, assalamu alaikum.